Hello, and welcome to the Acunetix deep dive video. Acunetix is a platform for testing and managing web application security and is available both online as well as on-premise. It can automatically scan any website or web application accessible over HTTP or HTTPS for over 3,000 web application vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. Additionally, Acunetix also provides powerful vulnerability management tools built right into the heart of the product. The automated security testing and vulnerability management process for most organizations is split up into 4 major stages. The first stage is scanning. In order to properly scan a website or web application, it needs to be crawled first. The Acunetix crawler analyzes the entire structure of a web application by looking for links and inputs. Being able to properly crawl a web application is essential for an accurate scan. The scanner cannot test the page for vulnerabilities if it doesn't know that the page exists. Basically, if you cannot crawl it, you cannot scan it. After the crawl is complete, Acunetix will proceed to test every page it found during the crawl for security vulnerabilities. A scan's scope can be customized, so you can easily exclude areas of the site that you do not wish to scan. The next step is to report the automated scan's findings. Acunetix provides us with a great deal of flexibility here. Results are automatically populated on the dashboard in real time. What's more, you can start working with the results that the scanner finds before the scan finishes. Acunetix provides us with a comprehensive list of management and compliance reports, including reports for PCI DSS, OWASP Top 10, HIPAA, ISO 27001, and others. Accurate scan results alone are not useful unless vulnerabilities are fixed, so remediation is the next step in the vulnerability management process. We've spoken about generating reports already, and while you can certainly provide a development team with a report of the scanner's findings, anyone who has worked on or with a development team during remediation knows that 300-page PDFs don't work particularly well. This is because development teams organize their work in issue trackers, since these tools are typically integrated with other aspects of the SDLC, such as version control. So providing PDFs to the people who actually need to fix vulnerabilities is just not a natural fit to the development team's workflow. This is why, apart from offering detailed developer reports, Acunetix also offers out-of-the-box integration with Atlassian Jira, GitHub, and Microsoft Team Foundation Server, allowing development teams to focus on remediation while still allowing management to extract the reports required for them to make strategic decisions. Acunetix can also export discovered vulnerabilities to the most popular web application firewalls. And you can also integrate Acunetix into new and existing Jenkins continuous integration and continuous deployment workflows. Finally, we'd want to verify that any vulnerabilities we found are properly fixed. And we can do this in 2 ways. First, we can mark a vulnerability as fixed. And once a vulnerability is marked as fixed, if that same vulnerability is detected again in a subsequent scan, Acunetix will mark it as rediscovered. This indicates that the implemented fix was not effective enough, and the vulnerability is still exploitable. Secondly, we have the option of setting up a target for continuous scanning. This allows us to ensure that any vulnerabilities go from discovery to remediation as quickly as possible. Let's now jump into a demo of Acunetix. So before starting a scan, we'll need to create a target of the site we wish to test. In this example, we'll be scanning testphp.vulnweb.com. So if you have downloaded and installed a trial version of Acunetix from our website, you can try this out yourself too. Adding a new target is simple. Just click on Targets in the right-hand side menu and click the Add Target button. You will now need to enter an address. This can be either a URL or an IP address of the location of the website or web application. Once we click Add Target, we're taken to the target configuration page. Now, because this site has a login page, we need to create a login sequence in order for us to instruct the scanner how to log into the web application. This is an essential part of the scanning process and something that is usually difficult or tedious to set up properly with other scanners. You can either attempt to have the scanner log in for you, and this will work for most simple sites which require just a username and a password, or else you can create a login sequence manually, which works better for more complex logins and provides much more control. Acunetix makes creating a login sequence very easy. So you simply need to go through the normal login process of signing into an account. And you'll notice that your actions are being recorded on the right-hand side pane. The scanner will then replay these actions to log in during the scan. Once you are done recording, you can click the play button to replay the login sequence and make sure everything is working correctly. Once you click Next, you have the option of selecting what links you do not want the scanner to click on whilst logged in. These are referred to as restrictions. For example, we obviously don't want the scanner to get logged out of the session during a crawl or a scan, so we can create a restriction by clicking on the logout link in order to restrict it. You're free to set up as many restrictions as you like. Once you're done restricting links, click Next. A login sequence on its own is not enough. The scanner needs to understand when it is logged in and when it is logged out, so that it can rerun the login sequence in the event of the authenticated session getting destroyed. The login sequence recorder needs what's known as a session pattern. A session pattern is nothing more than something unique between a logged in and a logged out state of the web application. The login sequence recorder will detect this pattern automatically for you. However, you're free to customize this pattern if you wish to do so. Clicking Finish will ask you to save the login sequence you've just created. You can now upload the login sequence to the newly created target. Once we're done with our configuration, we can simply click Scan to start scanning this target. We can set the scan type we want for this scan. For example, if we only want to scan for cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, we can choose the relevant scan type. You can also create your own scan types to specify exactly which vulnerabilities you want to test for. In this case, we're only going to be scanning for high-risk vulnerabilities. We can also specify a report that we want to automatically generate after the scan is completed. Of course, we can always go back and generate reports from previous scans later if we choose to do so. But for now, we'll choose a PCI compliance report in this example. Finally, we need to decide when the scan is to run. We can either run the scan instantly at a future date, or we can even set up a recurring schedule for the scan. For this example, let's just start the scan instantly. Acunetix will now start to crawl and subsequently scan the site for vulnerabilities. In the meantime, let's go over some of Acunetix's differentiating features. First, let's take a look at Deep Scan. Acunetix Deep Scan is the technology that powers the Acunetix crawler. Deep Scan can crawl and scan HTML5 web applications and can also execute JavaScript like a normal browser. This means that the crawler can crawl complex client-side web applications that make use of modern JavaScript frameworks. And Deep Scan also brings the ability to reliably detect DOM-based cross-site scripting, which is not possible using traditional crawlers. Also thanks to Deep Scan, Acunetix can scan for malicious URLs based off of the Google and Yandex safe browsing databases. And it can also test popular CMSs such as WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and others for hundreds of vulnerabilities. In addition to all of this, Deep Scan can also understand CRUD requests and can detect and individually test JSON, XML, and Google Web Toolkit input schemes, even in AJAX requests. Deep Scan can also automatically test web services, including SOAP web services with WSDL or WCF definitions and REST services with WADL definitions. Next, we'll take a look at Acumonitor. Acumonitor is a set it and forget it technology that is included as part of Acunetix. It serves as an intermediary service that works in the background and allows the scanner to detect out-of-band vulnerabilities. Out-of-band vulnerability testing accounts for vulnerabilities that do not provide a response to a scanner during testing. Such vulnerabilities include blind cross-site scripting, XML external entity injection, server-side request forgery, out-of-band SQL injection, and out-of-band remote code execution, all of which can be automatically detected using Acumonitor. In order to detect out-of-band vulnerabilities, an intermediary service that the scanner controls or has access to needs to exist. Acunetix combined with Acumonitor makes this automatic detection of such vulnerabilities painless and also transparent to the user running the scan. In this example, Acumonitor is detecting a blind cross-site scripting vulnerability. In the first step, Acunetix will send a cross-site scripting payload to the web application. The cross-site scripting payload will then get stored in a data store, which may remain there for an indefinite amount of time, possibly long after the scan is completed. This payload is executed inside of a victim's browser at a later date, possibly from an entirely different web application, which shared the same data store. Once the cross-site scripting payload executes, it will contact Acumonitor, notifying it that it has executed. And Acumonitor in turn notifies Acunetix. Finally, we'll talk about AcuSensor. AcuSensor is a standard component with Acunetix that can be installed on the server side to provide what's known as a gray box scan. Black box scanners, including Acunetix without AcuSensor, don't have access to the web application's code. On the other hand of the spectrum, source code analysis tools can't always understand what's happening when the code is in execution. Acusensor brings both testing methodologies together, and as a result can provide a more accurate and comprehensive scan. Since the sensor has knowledge of the backend system, it can also find vulnerabilities which a black box scanner cannot. Acusensor improves a scan by providing increased vulnerability information, such as the source code line number, and even a stack trace and queries affected by SQL injection. Furthermore, because Acusensor has full visibility of what's going on the back end, it brings a reduction to an already very low false positive and false negative rate. It also has the ability to analyze the server configuration to expose potential misconfigurations, and the ability to detect files present on the web server, thanks to Acusensor's backend crawl technology. And because Acusensor can indicate the vulnerable line of code, and even report additional debug information, it greatly increases the development team's efficiency at resolving critical security bugs. Let's now switch back to Acunetix and take a look at the scan results. The moment you click on a specific vulnerability, SQL injection in this case, Acunetix reveals the input parameter that is vulnerable, as well as the attack vector for that parameter. Acunetix will provide a summary of the vulnerability, and then it will proceed to explain what the impact of the vulnerability is and how to fix it. Since testphp.vulnweb.com is set up to work with Acusensor, we can see that Acunetix also provides us with the SQL statement used. And it will even provide us with the file concern and the vulnerable line of code. Another example of a vulnerability would be server-side request forgery, which is an out-of-band vulnerability, which was only possible to detect thanks to AccuMonitor. Selecting a specific vulnerability allows us to see its details, such as the vulnerability's description, attack details, the HTTP request that was sent, the vulnerability's impact, the vulnerability's fix, classifications such as CWE, CVE, and CVSS3, as well as any web references. Earlier, when we configured the scan, we requested that the PCI DSS report be generated upon the scan's completion. We can easily access the report by navigating to Reports. Apart from creating scan reports, we can also create a target report and an all vulnerabilities report. For example, I can create a target report that lists all vulnerabilities inside of a specific target that I'm interested in. And Acunetix can generate several types of reports, be that a developer report, which is the most detailed report, or a report that simply provides an executive summary. And of course, there's a comprehensive list of compliance reports to choose from, including OWASP Top 10, PCI DSS, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and others. We'll generate an affected items report for this example. As we discussed earlier, reports are great for communicating vulnerability management progress. However, when it comes to remediation, which is the most important step in the vulnerability management process, Acunetix provides us with a number of tools to help us even further. Before we can do anything with the vulnerability data we have, it's important that we're able to slice and dice it to obtain the results we're after. By using filters, we can fine-tune any view to reduce the data we're presented with to fit a complex search query. For example, we might want to see vulnerabilities that are of high and medium severity, exist in targets with a business criticality of critical and high, and have a status of open, so therefore are not fixed yet. And also, let's narrow this down to targets that are externally facing and also running in production. In some cases, it's not practical or possible to fix a vulnerability there and then. At the same time, it's not acceptable to leave known vulnerabilities ripe for exploitation. Web application firewalls, or WAFs, are useful tools in this space since they allow you to temporarily block malicious requests and give you enough breathing room to fix vulnerabilities. Acunetix supports virtual patching, the most popular web application firewalls. Now, while virtual patching reduces your risk temporarily, there's no better protection than to actually fix the vulnerability. And so Acunetix integrates closely with issue trackers, allowing you to open vulnerabilities as issues in Atlassian Jira, GitHub, and Microsoft Team Foundation server, without leaving Acunetix's user interface. That brings this deep dive to a close. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to our support team at support@acunetix.com. Thank you for your attention.